I smiled for 3 years while my in-laws treated me like I didn't exist, until the day they planned a 70-person party in my house without asking me. That's when I opened a folder that changed everything. My name is Simone Adeyemi. I am 35 years old. I have a background in corporate finance and a private consulting practice that I built over 7 years into something real and stable and entirely mine. I understand money the way some people understand language, instinctively, precisely, with an awareness of nuance that most people never develop because they never had to. I had to. I grew up in a household where financial instability was a chronic condition, not a crisis but a weather pattern, always present, always requiring management, always teaching me that the difference between safety and disaster was documentation, preparation, and the refusal to be surprised by anything that could be anticipated. I anticipated everything. I met Marcus at 28 at a professional conference where we were both presenting in adjacent sessions. He was thoughtful and genuinely funny and had the rare quality of making you feel, in conversation, like you were the most interesting person in the room. I fell in love with that quality and with him, and within 2 years we were married, and within 3 we had built a life together that looked, from the outside, like the life two ambitious people build when they are well-matched and working toward the same things. From the outside. Inside, there was a different architecture, one I did not fully map until I was already living within it. Marcus's family operated on a set of assumptions so old and so unexamined that nobody in it could have articulated them if asked. The assumptions were simply the air. The air said, Marcus is the center. Marcus's career matters most. Marcus's comfort is the organizing principle around which other people arrange their own. His mother, Helen, had built her entire identity around this assumption. His father, Thomas, had enforced it his entire career. His sister, Dana, had grown up watching it and had absorbed it completely, directing her own version of it outward toward every woman who entered Marcus's orbit. I entered that orbit and the assumptions extended to cover me without a conversation or a vote. My consulting income, which was substantial and which was the primary financial driver of our household from year one, because Marcus was building his own business, and in the early years that business required more investment than it returned, was treated as a household resource, not Marcus's money, not mine, ours, which in practice meant available for family needs as defined by people who were not contributing to it. Helen had a way of mentioning things that needed doing in a tone that implied they were already decided: the vacation house rental for the family summer gathering, the contribution to Thomas's retirement party, the renovation to the family home that Thomas had decided on and that Helen had mentioned to Marcus and that Marcus had mentioned to me, with the energy of someone reporting rather than consulting. Each of these things was reasonable in isolation. Together, over 3 years, they formed a pattern with a number attached to it. I knew the number. I had been keeping the records. I want to tell you about a Tuesday afternoon in February, 8 months before my Wednesday, because this is where the anger started forming into something with direction. I came home early from a client meeting that had ended ahead of schedule. Marcus was supposed to be working from home. When I pulled into the driveway, Thomas's car was already there. I walked in to find Thomas at my kitchen table with a folder open in front of him and Marcus sitting across from him with the expression of someone receiving instruction. Thomas looked up when I entered. He did not stop his sentence. He was talking about the equity in our home, specifically about a home equity line of credit he thought we should take out to fund a new investment venture he was structuring. He had numbers, he had projections, he had, in the folder, a draft application that already had our address on it. He had not called me, he had not emailed me. He had come to my house, sat at my table, and was explaining to my husband what we were going to do with my equity, without having directed a single word of it to me. I put my bag down. I sat at the table. Thomas acknowledged me with a nod and continued his sentence. I let him finish. Then I said, "Thomas, whose name is on the mortgage?" He paused. The property is in both your names. It isn't, I said. It's in mine, solely. The refinancing 2 years ago was in my name because my credit profile made the terms significantly better. I have the documentation if you'd like to see it. The table went quiet. Marcus looked at me with an expression I had not seen before on his face. Not guilt exactly, more like the specific discomfort of someone realizing that a conversation they thought they were a participant in was actually about them. Thomas closed the folder. I wasn't aware of that, he said. I know, I said pleasantly. That's why I mentioned it. He left within 20 minutes. Marcus and I had a conversation that evening that was long overdue. Not an explosion, a conversation. I told him, clearly and with evidence, what the pattern of the past 3 years looked like from where I was standing. I showed him portions of my records. I showed him the number. He was quiet for a long time. I didn't see it as a pattern, he said. I know, I said. I did. What do you want? He said. I told him. I wanted the pattern to end. I wanted my contributions to be visible and acknowledged within our marriage, not erased by a family narrative that cast him as the provider. I wanted his parents' access to our financial decisions to stop. I wanted to be consulted, not reported to, on anything that involved our shared life. He agreed. He meant it. And for approximately 6 weeks, things were different. Then Helen called about the summer gathering. This year it would be at our house, she said. She had told the family. She had a guest list. She was thinking 60 people, and she had some thoughts about catering that she wanted to discuss with Marcus. She called Marcus's phone on a Tuesday afternoon while I was in a client meeting. Marcus agreed before he called me. When he told me that evening, I said nothing for a moment. Then I asked how many people. 60, he said. Maybe 65. Mom has a few more she might add. In our home, I said. It would mean a lot to her, he said. I looked at him. I thought about the folder on my encrypted drive. I thought about 3 years of records and the conversation 6 weeks ago and the 6 weeks of genuine effort that had just concluded with my husband agreeing to turn my home into a venue for 65 people without asking me. I thought about all the smiling I had done. I was done smiling. Okay, I said. Just that. Okay. Marcus looked relieved, which told me he had been expecting a fight and had decided that my okay meant there wasn't going to be one. He was right that there wasn't going to be a fight. He was very wrong about what my okay meant. That night, after he was asleep, I went to my home office and I opened my encrypted drive, and I sat for a long time with 3 years of records in front of me, and I made a decision that I had been building toward without knowing it for a very long time. I was not going to fight. I was going to restructure. Completely, methodically, in a way that was entirely within my legal rights and entirely impossible to argue with, because every single piece of it would be documented. The next morning, I called my attorney. I need to do a complete review of every financial arrangement tied to my marriage, I said. Assets, accounts, property, contribution records, everything. She had worked with me professionally for 4 years. She had seen my documentation practices. She did not ask for clarification. When can you come in? She said. I came in that afternoon. The review took 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, I continued my normal life without any visible change. I made dinner, I attended a family dinner at Helen's where I smiled and passed the bread and listened to Thomas talk about his investment projections, and I said nothing that indicated anything was different. Underneath the normal surface, everything was changing. My attorney confirmed what I had already known about the property. My name solely on the deed. Any home equity line of credit required my signature alone. She also surfaced something I had not fully considered. Over 3 years, several significant expenses I had covered had been tied to joint financial declarations. tax filings where Marcus had listed household contributions as joint, an insurance claim from 18 months ago where both our names appeared as co-contributors to a business asset that had been entirely funded by me. The paper trail of 3 years of invisible contribution was, in legal terms, a documented record of financial investment that had clear implications for how assets would be valued in any formal proceeding. I was not planning a divorce. I want to be clear about that. I was planning a renegotiation, but a renegotiation requires leverage, and leverage requires knowing exactly what you have. I knew exactly what I had. The summer gathering was scheduled for the third Saturday in July. Helen had expanded the guest list to 72. She had been emailing Marcus about catering options. She had been calling to discuss a tent rental for the back garden, my back garden, the one I had designed and planted and maintained for 3 years. On the Monday before the gathering, I called Marcus into my home office. I closed the door. I put my folder on the desk between us. Not a portion of it. All of it. 3 years, fully documented, organized by category with summary totals on the cover page. Marcus looked at the cover page. He looked at the summary totals. He looked at me. "Sit down," I said. He sat. I walked him through it. Not quickly, thoroughly. Every category, every year, the contributions to family events, the household expenses covered solely by my income while his business was in development, the home equity in my name that Thomas had attempted to access without my knowledge, the insurance filing, the tax declarations, the full, complete, accurate picture of what the past 3 years actually looked like when you stopped looking at the comfortable version and started looking at the records. Marcus did not interrupt. To his credit, he did not try to minimize or deflect. He sat and he listened, and I watched his face move through a sequence of realizations that each arrived a little harder than the last. When I finished, he said, "What do you need from me?" Right question. After everything, still the right question. "I need the pattern to end," I said, "not for 6 weeks, permanently. I need your parents to understand that this household is mine, that the financial decisions in it run through me, and that arrangements made without my knowledge and consent are not arrangements I am obligated to honor." "The gathering," he started. "The gathering is not happening here," I said. He looked at me. "Marcus," I said, "I did not agree to the gathering. You agreed to the gathering on my behalf without asking me. I am telling you now that my home is not available for an event I was not consulted about." "My mother already told everyone." "Then she'll need to tell them something different," I said, "or find a venue, which I am happy to help research if that would be useful." The silence lasted a while. "She's going to be furious," he said. "I know," I said. "That's information about her, not a reason for me to comply." Marcus called Helen that evening. I was not in the room. I did not need to be. What I heard afterward from Marcus was that Helen had gone through several stages: disbelief first, then the suggestion that I was being difficult, then the question of whether something was wrong with me, then, when Marcus held the position without bending, a silence that was the specific silence of a person whose expectation of compliance has just encountered a wall it did not know was there. The gathering was moved to a rented venue. Helen did not speak to me for 3 weeks after that. I used those 3 weeks productively. I met with Marcus and his parents together once in a conversation I had requested and structured and which my attorney had helped me prepare for. I brought my folder. I did not bring anger. I brought documentation. I laid out clearly and without drama what the financial reality of our household actually was, what my contributions had been, what the legal standing of the property was, and what I expected going forward in terms of how decisions were made and who was consulted. Thomas was quiet in a way I had not seen from him before, the specific quiet of a person who has walked into a room expecting to be the most informed person in it and discovered they were not. Helen asked at one point why I had never said anything before. I was saying it, you weren't listening, so I documented it instead. The conversation ended with agreements, written agreements drafted by my attorney, signed by all four of us. Agreements about financial decisions and property access, and the process by which family requests were made and considered. Not demands, agreements. There is a difference, and the difference matters. Marcus and I are still married, more honestly than before, more carefully. He became, after that Wednesday and everything that followed, a different kind of partner than he had been, more present, more aware, more likely to notice the invisible labor before it accumulated into a 3-year folder on an encrypted drive. He is not perfect, neither am I, but we are honest now in a way we were not before, and honesty is the foundation that everything else either stands on or doesn't. Helen and I have a relationship, smaller than it was, more boundaried, with a clarity between us that did not exist before. She is not warm toward me the way she was when warmth was a management strategy. What she is instead is careful, and careful from Helen feels more like respect than warmth ever did. Thomas has not sat at my kitchen table uninvited since the Wednesday his folder met my question. My equity line of credit has not been applied for by anyone except me. My garden is mine. My mortgage is mine. My kitchen table is mine. My name is on the document that matters most, and everyone in my life now knows exactly what that means. I want to tell you something about the smile I used to wear, the one I held through 3 years of being organized around, overlooked, reported to instead of consulted, treated like the furniture. That smile was not weakness. It was patience with a strategy attached. It was 3 years of receipts and records and legal documents and quiet mornings in my home office building something that could not be argued with, because it was built not from emotion, it was built from evidence. Some people mistake your silence for surrender. Let them. Silence in the right hands is not the absence of action. It is the time you spend making sure that when you act completely. I acted completely. I took back my home, my equity, my kitchen table, my right to be consulted about my own life, my standing in the family I had married into and funded and supported and smiled through for 3 years without a single person stopping to ask what it cost me. I took it all back. Not loudly, not with a scene, not with the kind of confrontation that gives the other side a stage, with a folder, an attorney, a signed agreement, and the absolute, unshakable certainty of a woman who kept every receipt. They thought the quietest person in the room had nothing to say. I had 3 years of things to say. I said every single one.